Just give us your first response to this news.
Well, I think we should welcome it in terms of this being a humanitarian pause. It's obviously the case that there should be non-combatants in times of war, and that includes the sick, the old, infirm, the very young. And so the fact that it's women and children, I think, being released is a good thing. Of course, they shouldn't really be taking any hostages at all, because that's against the Geneva Convention. But it's a start. It's also worth saying, of course, though, that this is just a humanitarian pause as much as anything, in terms of the sort of lexicon from the left to right of arc of how we look at these things, from a truce to a ceasefire to an armistice to a peace settlement. It is very limited in time and in numbers. And as at the moment, Israel has not achieved its military objectives. So for at least 4 days, there will be a pause in operations, but I would certainly expect them to recommence after that if there are not further hostages to be released. And it's also worth saying, of course, that Hamas have not given the ICRC, who the hostages have been handed over to, access to the other hostages who are still there.
Yeah. And as you rightly say, Chip, there at the beginning, it isn't really a point. I mean, we're all very, very happy that some of the many people taken have been released, but celebration is the wrong word. These are people that shouldn't have been there in the first place, of course. And for in any war setting to be taking hostages, as you rightly say, is against all conventions. Particularly, we're talking about women and children here as well, the elderly, the vulnerable. I mean, this is pretty lowbrow stuff by any standards, but it is a terror group after all, and I guess we should always expect the unexpected.
Yeah, and I think if you expand that, so for example, in the Israeli 2020 concept of victory, they describe all the three groups, the three main groups of Hamas, the Houthis in Yemen and Hezbollah in Lebanon, as rocket-based terror armies. And of course, as far as we know, the truce doesn't apply to Hezbollah, neither does it apply to the Houthis. So it'll be interesting to see if they sort of also keep their powder dry, to give a sort of sense of some sort of confidence building. Now, I think also from a military perspective, one of the interesting things is that Israel is supposed to have stopped for the duration their air and drone activity over Gaza. Now, that's pretty significant if that occurs, because of the eyes and ears which give you the intel and targeting about things to go after. But although that might be the case, it's also true that in Operation Guardians of the Wall, which was principally against Palestinian Islamic Jihad in 2021, it was actually the Israeli satellite power allied to artificial intelligence that gave them their targeting. It was the first artificial intelligence war.
We are looking at the moment, Chip, of 8 trucks. These are live pictures as well from the Rafah crossing. 8 trucks making that journey, aid trucks making that journey over the crossing. Now, of course, this was all crucial to, there may well be 8 aid trucks as it happens, but there's a lot of them there, that's for sure. This is, of course, is crucial, Chip, to that negotiation. It wasn't just about the humanitarian side in terms of human life, but also getting aid, medical supplies and fuel into Gaza.
Yeah, and this is part of what I was really saying about who are the non-combatants in war. Now, obviously, that can be quite a wide definition, particularly if people are sustaining Hamas by their sort of support, either overt or covert. But no one wants to see people, women and children, die or be subjected to lack of supplies, because they have that status in war. And that's why we sort of always talk about the distinction between jus ad bellum, that which causes or justifies war. And of course, under Article 51, Israel has every right to retaliate for what happened on the 7th of November. But that is followed on by what we call jus in bello, conduct in war, which should be proportionate to what the Israelis need to achieve so that Hamas can't murder their citizens again.
Indeed. Final point, Chip. This goes on over 4 days. We hope it continues. The chronology and the promises are kept up. But of course, this is very early days of something here. It doesn't complete the release of all hostages. What happens on day 5?
Well, I think, again, you have to go back to what the Israeli objectives are. So one of the objectives is, of course, to release all the hostages. Now, again, this is low-hanging fruit in terms of these hostages. That is that the women and children are not the high-value targets in the way that, for example, those Israeli soldiers who were in the bag are. And we saw that historically with the trading of one Israeli soldier, Shalid Galat, for 1,000 Palestinians. Now, I would expect on day 5, or that might be extended 1 day or 2 days, for the Israelis go back to try and achieve their military operational objectives. And that is really to annihilate Hamas in ethical combat. That is the first thing. The second thing is they need to get rid of the rocket-based parts of Hamas, because that is what gives credibility to the fact that the border is not secure unless you get rid of that. So all those things need to happen, and they'll happen on day 5 onwards.